Good evening, council members. Tried to come up with a joke, but unfortunately I don't think there is one for this situation. I'm not going to go through and read the definition again because it's already been read. But before the council votes to approve or not approve this ordinance, I'm going to request that these questions be discussed by the council members. Number one, who is it that can self-identify? Can anybody self-identify? Can a guy walking down the street that sees the Dallas Cowboys cheerleaders walking into the bathroom in the park self-identify just to follow them in? What is that definition? To avoid discrimination, will urinals be required to be installed in the women's bathrooms? If so, who's going to pay for it? And if not, will the bathrooms become general or gender neutral? Number three, and I brought copies in case everybody wants one. How are women going to be protected from potential sex offenders self-identifying to enter the women's restroom? That's a big question for me. I have a 12-year-old daughter. When she wants to go to the park, how is she going to be protected? Within 2 miles of this council building and our own riverfront park, there's 103 registered sex offenders. Tell me that's not a big concern for parents. Manitou Park, 71. Now that does not include the transient offenders that aren't registered. How are teen abductions going to be affected by self-identifying predators? What'll stop predators or offenders from identifying at children's camps, sporting events, and daycare centers, which are included in Section L of this ordinance? What protections will be put in place for those children at children's camps, children's sporting events, and daycare centers? What prevents children from exposure in washrooms where no doors are available for the stalls? Merkle Field is an example, Franklin Park, Ripon Soccer Field. There's no doors, no curtains on the stalls. When and how is a person required to self-identify? Before they enter the bathroom or the restroom of their choice? After? There was 2 girls up on the north side almost abducted in a church parking lot just the other day. It can just as easily happen if they're playing in the park and they decide to use the restroom. I'm not going to address transgender. I'm not going to address whether you're gay, whether you're bi. My question is how are you going to stop sex offenders from self-identifying and entering into those places that are supposed to be a place for women to duck into to be safe? Thank you.
Thank you.
Here now, just so you guys know.
We've been joined by the voice of Council President. Welcome.
Thanks.
Councilmember Salvatore.
Well, I'm just going to say that I think the Human Rights Commission got this one right. I also take great offense to equating any particular class or category or self-identified or not of individuals being likely to be a sex offender. I think it's short-sighted. I don't think it looks at all the facts. I think to believe that the emblem on the door stops a predator from going in there is not correct. So I think that's just a false sense of security. When in doubt, I'm going to go with the Human Rights Commission. I think they got it right, so I am going to support it.
My name is Tim Ban. Thanks, Council, for hearing testimony on this. I've lived in Spokane my whole life. I love it here. Our city's seen a lot of changes. As you can see, our city's struggling to follow state law with our water. Here, we're trying to redefine what our state has already defined. And I think we do need to protect people. I'm worried as a father and a guy in this community who works with children, the way this ordinance is positioned, because it puts people at risk. And I don't think it really represents anybody trying to identify one way or the other, honestly. I think it leaves a lot of room for people to misuse this ordinance. So I would be more cautious on how you word it because it's very broad. I'm not a huge fan of the Dallas Cowboys, as she mentioned, but I could see situations like that playing out. How are we to protect our children? We have laws that protect our children from exposure to things that might damage them, okay, or things that might be considered adult content. And if we just have a revolving door for anyone to self-identify, like she mentioned, the litigation will fall on the city. There is, and which falls on the taxpayer, falls on me, it falls on my children. I'm not here to discriminate against anyone, and I don't think we should. But I think we need to make sure we're not discriminating against the taxpayer and the people that use those public facilities, and we need to protect them. Most of government's purpose is public safety, and I think this causes a big problem. If I see a man following girls into a girls' restroom and it's obviously a man, it sends up a red flag, and I can ask questions. Well, if this passes, I will no longer be able to ask that question. We'll just have to wait and see what happens. I think there's a lot of risk in it. And I ran for the legislature because we have state laws that don't always work out well. And one of the things that I pushed, and we actually got a bill passed, and we worked very hard on it, so that the state law and state bureaucracy would quit duplicating services and stepping on the toes of our municipal government. Here, I think we're doing the opposite. If the members of this body wants to redefine state law, do it during the legislative session.
Councilmember Allen.
Thank you for everyone who came down to testify. First off, I have to say I find it totally offensive that just because someone maybe identify themselves as trans, that they are automatically considered a criminal, or they're going to rape somebody in a bathroom. I find that a very outdated and offensive argument. Now, where I do run into problems with this particular ordinance is that I think there's ramification for businesses, I think there's ramification for schools, and I think there's ramifications for other aspects that aren't addressed here in council chambers and are better addressed at the state legislature. And for that reason, I will vote no on this ordinance. It's not because there's just too many moving parts for the city of Spokane to take on that legal obligation, that if something happens here in the city, somebody decides to sue because it's our ordinance, which is then tighter than the state and hasn't been vetted for its legal requirements. It's just, I think, places an undue burden on the taxpayers of the city. And for that reason, I think this needs to be addressed at the state level, not at the city level. Again, I find those arguments about criminalization horribly offensive, but at the same time, these need to be vetted at the state level, because I think that's where the proper legislation should come from.
I'm not going to address transgender. I'm not going to address whether you're gay, whether you're bi. My question is how are you going to stop sex offenders from self-identifying and entering into those places that are supposed to be a place for women to duck into to be safe? Thank you.
Thank you. The continual confusing of crime and criminality or rape or setting people on fire or murder with the whole transgender community is yet another reason why we need to do this tonight. As long as those kind of outdated ideas exist, we're not allowing the city of Spokane to be a welcoming place for everyone. So I think Spokane has been a leader before in the state on these issues, and tonight we have a chance to be a leader again. So
I wholeheartedly agree with what Councilman Snyder said. Appreciate the Human Rights Commission for bringing this forward. Apologies for not being there in person this evening. I will be voting yes, and I just wanted to say that it does make me sad to listen to some of that testimony from here at my dad's house this evening. It was pretty saddening, and that's why this law needs to be passed.
I'm not here to discriminate against anyone, and I don't think we should.
Aye.
All those opposed?
Nay.
The ayes have it, 5-2. The ordinance change passes.